Hello everybody, welcome to your morning interactive safari. I am Noelle, and on camera today I have the wonderful Senzo. Senzo says hello. Don't forget you can follow us and ask us questions on hashtag Safari Live on the Twitter or on a YouTube chat. So we had some wonderful rain last night after our very hot and humid day. I'm currently being blown away, Senzo and I. Senzo is just going to fix our blustery roof for the moment. So for this morning, it's going to be interesting seeing what we can find. We had the sticks yesterday evening, and Tristan had Tingana. So Tingana, I'm not quite sure where he moved off. Tristan will be able to tell us better in a little while. The sticks started moving sort of west, but with that big rain, and I'm talking thunder and lightning and a little bit of flooding in camp. Nothing hectic, everyone's okay, but there was some water coming into some places that we were watching very carefully. So with that kind of rain, it makes tracking before that rain happened. If anything stops moving after that, it's going to be very difficult, but if anything's moved since then, the tracks are going to be super fresh. So we're going to be probably going to look for the Styx Pride, but as I say that, and as you know, I always make a plan, it never goes accordingly. So that's part of the plan for today. What else is going to happen is the clouds are actually lifting. So it's still windy and it's a bit chilly, but the clouds are lifting a bit. So when it gets a little bit warmer than it is right now, there's going to be some really good bird activity that's happening and also some really good insect activity. And I'm hoping that with the clouds lifting and with the little bit of rain, that Steph will be able to go out on his walk. I do know that he has the tent set up in case it starts raining again and he's not able to walk. It's interesting with rain and with walking. You obviously don't want to get too wet, but it has a lot to do with sound and with safety. It's one of the reasons why we don't do walks in the rain, especially heavy rain. That would just be completely silly. But it's looking good. I'm not going to lie. It is looking much better. And as much as I'm talking about the rain this morning, it is needed. We desperately need this rain. And it seems as if our whole area got it. I was talking with friends of mine last night who work in the Timbavati, and they had about 20 millimeters already. I'm not quite sure how much we had. I would guesstimate probably around 10 to 15 would be my guesstimate. But I fell asleep eventually, so I don't know how hard that rain carried on. So as we are busy getting ready for our morning and thinking about all of this, we heard some wildebeest earlier, and I got really excited because it sounded like it was being eaten, and then it was just in fact two male wildebeest that were running around and fighting with each other. We've talked about it a little bit before earlier in the week, where you have rain that comes and it washes away territorial smells. So our wildebeest in South Africa are quite territorial. They will roll down, they'll get their front of their horns down into the ground with their occipital gland, and that marks territory, and then in their interpedial glands, and then they roll down on one side and they get up and they roll down and then they go to the toilet and they walk around. I've actually seen them fighting over one road. So it sounds like that's what was happening this morning, not the sticks killing of wildebeest, as much as I would have enjoyed being able to open the show with that. But I am very hopeful that as we get out and about, we will find of the predators having been super active last night. Other than that, do we have any tips for today that you would like to share and see if everything we can do the best that we can around the bush gives you what it gives you. Over that mongoose.
And welcome. It is the bushwalk this morning, and we are just heading out of camp after having what was the biggest storm that we've had in the last at least year and a little bit last night. It's thrown everything into a bit of chaos and pandemonium. Of course, that is what these rainstorms do. And I I just want to show you what the ground looks like here after the rain last night. Oh, by the way, my name is Stefan Winterboer, and we have Xander on camera today for the walk. Excuse me, in the rush to get things done today, it was rude of me and I didn't introduce myself. You can actually see where the grass was washed up into these, basically into these patterns that show where water was running and streaming off last night. And this shows basically sheet flow. And that's very important for this grass to act as barriers like this and build up the grass. It's that slows the water down. When the water is slowed down, it seeps into the ground. It doesn't run off and run away and create soil erosion. And so it's very important that there is grass lying down, there is grass cover. And although there was a lot of runoff last night, we had a river through the middle of camp, at least that deep, there was no damage done. And I'm hoping that the water table rose just a little bit after this evening's, after last night's rain. The predictions are for more rain throughout the day. And as you can see, ominously building there in the south, which is where we get most of our rain from, the clouds are starting to bank up again and scud across the sky. So we probably find that before the end of drive today, we have got some more rain. But it's okay, we've got the tent all set up and prepared, the roofs are on the cars, the raincoats are out, and of course, a little bit of water has never scared anybody. I said a little bit of water, not too much of water. Now, there were some wildebeest running around here this morning when we were busy setting up the tent this morning. There was a lot of noise coming from wildebeest here. I initially thought that a wildebeest had been caught by a lion or by a hyena. And then I realized that they were just chasing one another around. And here's evidence of a fight that has been going on with some wildebeest. You can see where one fell down on the floor. Right here is the belly pattern of where a wildebeest fell down. And over here is where he tried to stand up. And you can see as he was kicking out the soil, trying to stand up, you can see the spray pattern of the sand. And that spray pattern is all the way to here. Here's some mud that just kicked up. Here's even a piece of grass that just kicked up in this fight. Have a look at that. So what was happening was wildebeest were having a fight with one another. One fell on the ground, probably got twisted. They lock their horns sometimes and they'll twist around just like wrestlers twist one another around. And the shoulder went in, rolled over, and as he was getting up, he kicked. And with those massively strong back legs, they kicked out a spray of sand. Easily here. It's counted for you. So there's about 3 feet in a yard, in a meter. So just less than 5 meters, which is what? About 15 feet? 13 to 15 feet? That's amazing. A lot of energy went into that. And that, in the meantime, these wildebeest have moved on. We might be lucky we can get them just over the top of the rise here, which is I think what we're going to try and do is get to the top of this particular rise and see if we can see what's happening with these wildebeest. Wow, there's just more. There's a lot of sand kicked around here with these wildebeest. Looks like they spent a decent amount of time around here. Now James, you've requested a giant land snail for this morning's walk. I'll do my best to try and find you a giant land snail, James. It's the perfect conditions for them. Obviously a lot of humidity in the air. It's a little bit cold. I must say my desert blood is getting a bit chilly this morning. But nevertheless, high humidity, lots of rain, saturated ground. And that is the recipe for a giant land snail. For those of you who don't know what a giant land snail is the largest land-based mollusk on the planet. There are obviously bigger ones that live underneath the sea, but this one grows to a whopping size like this, just smaller than an American football in some cases. So a massive snail in all respects. Now I don't see those wildebeest here anywhere. So we'll just carry on going over here and see if we can find them. They were making noise up until about 10 minutes ago. Now incidentally, talking about the rain, this is the rain tree. Now it's not called the rain tree because it calls the rain. It's called the rain tree because it has a particular insect that enjoys living in the leaves called the spittle bug. The spittle bug lives on tree sap, and tree sap, for all its goodness, is high in water but fairly low in nutrients. And so this little insect, the spittle bug, needs to suck a lot of tree sap to get the nutrients that it needs for itself. And what it does with the excess water is creates a foam and a nest around itself. So it creates a watery protective foam around itself, and that foam drips constantly. So in very wet years, when the spittle bugs are out in abundance, these trees are infested by these spittle bugs, and when you walk underneath them, even on a bright sunny day, you get wet from all the bugs dripping on your head. Nothing more than just excreted excess water. And this is a very nice example of an apple leaf, a very healthy apple leaf tree, and one of the protected trees in the Kruger National Park. Now, Jared, you'd like to know if we have excuse me, my lips are a bit cold this morning with the wind blowing. You'd like to know if we have flash flooding when it rains this hard? That's actually a good question, Jared. I'm going to say no, because it doesn't rain that much. So the volume of water here is not that much to overcome the vegetation. Does it flood to a point where creek beds and river beds would all of a sudden and basically within that storm rise and rush and tumble? Yes, absolutely. But flooding in terms of a widespread wash of water that, you know, disrupts homes and washes people away and affects daily life, no, it's quite rare that. We don't really get that much. Although that being said, you know, this morning when I woke up, the first thing that I saw was a flood warning from the South African National Weather Service. And so, perhaps I'm mistaken here, Jared, and we do actually get flooding. I want to try and qualify that though. So a lot of South Africa's population live in very rural, very poor areas where there is little to no adherence to health and safety concerns with regards to where they build their homes. And the reason for this is that a lot of people still grow their own food here, are subsistence farmers, and subsistence farmers live close to where they grow their crops easily. Crops are most easily grown on alluvial soils, and so a lot of people have their homes around these areas, and these areas do get flooded and do get saturated when there's a lot of water and a lot of rain. This time of the year, in spite of the South African National Weather Service's warning, in this particular area, I don't think we've got too much to worry about. We're fairly high up. The camp is built on a hill. We don't have too much to worry about. The same as in Mara Camp in Kenya, we also built on top of a hill there. That being said, Brent and Jamie are supposed to have been on drive with us this morning, and it's still at 1 o'clock this morning. They were battling to get into Mara Camp. The roads around central Kenya or south central Kenya are just in an appalling state due to their long rainy season, which has started in earnest, and I think they are probably still tucked up in beds, as muddy as anything. The last photograph I saw from Brent this morning was around about 1 o'clock with mud up to his nostrils, which is of course what Brent is in his element in, and trying his hardest to get a car unstuck in the mud. Now, what's happened over here is the rain has washed the entrance cone to this termite mound away, and it's provided us a very unique insight into the central chamber of this particular termite mound before they come and fix it tonight. So obviously it was cold last night and wet, and the termites decided to go inside and not repair. But what it does do is it allows me to warm my hands. The air coming out of here is about 30 degrees centigrade, and right now it feels like I've got my hands in an oven, and has a lovely smell as well. I really like wet kiln clay biscuity smell, fungusy smell. It's fantastic. And of course I can warm my hands up as well. Better watch out for snakes. With it being warm like this on a cold day, snakes will find refuge inside these ones as well. What you don't want to do is get yourself black mambed on the hand. Definitely going to take a wet, cold day and turn it into a horrible day. Come through. D. Wilson, you'd like to know if insects and other predators will come out after the rain? Absolutely. This rain that we had last night is going to kickstart the summer abundance. I've been on walks now for a couple of days, and I can spy that wildebeest. I've been on walks for a couple of days, and we've had a relatively low insect yield up until now, and now this is going to start. Look there, there's those wildebeest. I think it's even those two males that are still chasing one another around. And one male follows another one like that. You know that there's something a little bit more than just a game of tag going on. They've now seen us and forgotten whatever game they've been playing. Those are now brindled gnu or blue wildebeest. Now I'd like to show you something that we haven't seen. We've seen it on drive already, but we haven't seen it on walk. Zana, this middle tree in front of us here. If we go up about as tall as what I am, there's a horizontal branch on the left hand side. There's a woodland kingfisher sitting on the branch.
That one?
Yeah, it is that one. Just up a little bit. There we go. I'll see if we're going to see if we can get a little bit closer to this woodland kingfisher for you. In the meantime, we're going to be sending you over to Noel, who's sitting at a waterhole for you.
We have a gray heron. It feels like a bird morning this morning, even with this chilliness. Steph's woodland kingfisher, and then this beautiful gray heron we have here. He was over to our side a little bit and has gone further down the inflow, and he's gonna be very patient and stand very still and maybe move every now and then carefully and with much purpose, trying to look at that, very, very, very carefully moving, trying to find something to eat. Frogs, I watched one catch a terrapin once, a baby terrapin, and then try to figure out, well, what is it going to do next? And it was just wandering around holding it in his mouth. And they're extremely, extremely patient. I've watched them stand in one spot for well over a half hour, barely moving, just trying to get the optimal time to strike its prey. That pointy little beak that it has. Quite a beautiful bird. When they sit up in the trees, they sometimes pull their necks all the way in, and they look about half their size when they do that. Oh, there he's doing. You're listening to me today. Thank you, sir. He's probably chilly. I don't know if we can hear the other birds that are calling in the background. We've got some blacksmith lapwings hunting on, and the Egyptian geese have gone quiet in the background. We had a scimitar bill and a brown-crowned chagra. And some spur fowl. Everybody's just reminding us that it is morning, they are awake, they are still alive, and that's their territory. Dawn chorus is a wonderful time as everything comes awake. Now, I'm very surprised we're not really hearing any frogs down here after that beautiful rain we had last night. There is a little bit of blue sky that's popping up and a little bit of sunlight, which is making me very happy because it's extremely cold and windy right now. There, little bits of blue sky. I can see our blacksmith lapwing, but I'm not quite sure where their babies are. We'll have to wait and see if they come out a little bit more to give us a chance to check on them. There's one parent there. So some rollers in the background. Alright, so we are going to carry on towards Twin Dams area and then over onto Chitwa. The little bit that we've done now, I haven't picked up any tracks from anything other than a hyena and some wildebeest. So we will see what we find along the way. I also can hear a brew in the background. There's lots of bird activity. It's fantastic. And a Cokie Franklin's calling as well.
You know, on a day like today where we've got a multitude of different things going on at the moment, including water in places water shouldn't be, and that was mainly because for about half an hour last night the rain was raining sideways at a point where it didn't matter where you stood, you'd get wet. And of course it is creating a little bit of chaos here at the moment, so please bear with us as we just sort it all out. Rest assured, we've got Jared and Conrad running themselves into a blur and are wearing a nice dry pathway between the tech room and control this morning, and you know, we'll get there. So please just bear with us. Myself and Zandy are sort of just ambling along at the top of quarantine clearings over here, mainly to see if we can get you closer to those two woodland kingfishers that are making their displays quite prominent on top of this hill. The last time we saw them, they were flying off in this direction. And that was only because there's some vegetation here in front of us, and I want to see if we can get a little bit closer to them. The reason for that is that I want to try and demonstrate as tame as this, but you could literally hold out a frog and a woodland kingfisher would come and take it out of your hand. Not quite like that, but fairly close. They'll come and sit right at branches above your head. They'll pick up insects around your feet. But in the beginning, they're shy and they're wild, and it's because where they come from in the jungles of Central Africa, they don't see a lot of people. The population is very small there, and what happens is that they lose that comfortable feeling around people. I'm just trying to see if I can show you. At the moment it's about 100 yards or so. That's their comfort zone. It's about 100 yards. After, or closer than 100 yards, they're moving off to set up a new perimeter, and by the end of summer we'll have them flying around us at a few yards just off of our fingertips basically. I can't see where it went. Did you see where it went, Xander? They were sitting in this tree here and then they flew off. Boyd, you'd like to know if there's any fruits that we can eat on bushwalk this time of the year? I'm just trying to think while I'm busy talking, Boyd. I think it's probably a little bit early for fruit, but not by much. The trees have just flowered. Some of the first trees have just finishing their flowers, and the flowers will lead to the fruit. The marulas have got a decent fruit load this year, although it'll be interesting to see what the storm did last night to a lot of the marula trees. Heavy wind can blow a lot of the early season fruit off and damage it. Num-nums will start their fruiting soon. Some figs. You'll probably be able to eat some figs, although all the fig trees out here are absolutely infested with fig wasps. And so, you know, you definitely get a mouthful of protein as much as what you get a mouthful of figs. What else is good to eat out here this time of the year? It's just still so dry that even though it's overcast and gloomy and grey and there's a lot of water around, we haven't had a lot of rain this year, and so the fruit load is definitely a lot lower now than what it will be in a couple of weeks, hopefully. So at the moment, nothing other than tubers still, unfortunately. but that'll change in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. Let's go and see if I can see. Here's a marula tree. Now up against the sky you can see the fruit at the top of the tree, and you can see that there's going to be a lot of fruit this year. Now obviously the storm last night didn't blow off too many of the green fruits, which is actually fantastic, and considering that this tree is fairly exposed, you would imagine that if the storm was bad enough to knock off fruit, that this tree would have had a decent amount of fruit knocked off, and it doesn't, which is quite nice. There's in actual fact not a single fruit that I can see on the floor here that's oh, here we go, there's one. So one fruit was brushed off. This is a young marula, and by the time it's ripe it'll be about this big and it'll be yellow, and that'll happen in around about February this year. So they've got a bit of growing still to do, and lots of birds around making a noise this morning. The bird chorus is just epic. It's probably because they're so cold they've all gotten going the same time as we did this morning, which is, you know, just a little bit after 3:30. Now, the legend, you've just asked if there's any scorpions around last night. And funny that you say that. Kirsty had a scorpion in her room last night. It was crawling around on the floor, trying to get away from the storm and the storm waters. And so there's a lot. The scorpions are here all the time. Scorpions live for longer than a year, and they definitely are still around. They've just been dormant for a little bit. The most common scorpions around at the moment are bark scorpions. They're the ones that get and feel the sun first, and so that was the little scorpion that we took out of Kirsty's room last night. It was a bark scorpion. I have seen the trails of the big Epistocanthus scorpions, so the shiny or granulated burrowing scorpions. You get both. They are out and about at night time, so I've seen their tracks on the floor already. What other scorpions we're going to get here? I haven't seen any of the super venomous scorpions out and about just yet. We get 2 or 3 different types of venomous scorpions here. The genus Parabuthus is probably the most common one. I haven't seen any of those around, but then again, I haven't been out at night yet a lot over the last couple of weeks. I tend to be safely secured in camp by the time the sun sets, and haven't been on a night safari or a night walk in an age. So I'm sure they're out there. I just haven't seen any of the poisonous ones, but scorpions definitely out and about. Alright, we've got Tristan back online, and so we're going to be sending you over to him, and he's busy looking at the clouds building up in the south.
We're looking at the clouds that are hopefully not building, but rather departing and leaving us this morning, because there's already a little bit of rain that has fallen. Hopefully we will not get any more, given that we don't have our roof on. Right, as Steph mentioned, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Willem the wildebeest. It's nice to have Wildy back on board after his leave. I'm sure he had a wonderful time, so it's always good to be on the vehicle with Wildy. Now it is live, it is interactive, so hashtag Safari Live or YouTube chat. I'm sure lots of you had a wonderful time watching the storm last night on the dam cam. It really did come down at one point, and lots of lightning. It was absolutely phenomenal to see it, and beautiful. And this morning it's probably going to be a little on the quiet side. The roads are completely washed clean. There's not a single track anywhere that we've seen so far, and Willem and I have been struggling to try and find signal in places, and so we've driven quite a bit already, and we've found that all the roads are just this kind of clean slate. And so if we do pick up tracks this morning, it hopefully is going to mean that we'll be able to find these animals fairly easily. The thing is, though, is that there's now water everywhere, and that means that it's going to be a lot harder to find a lot of our animals, because they can find water wherever they want to go, and it makes it a lot easier for them. It just makes it much harder for us. But the plan is we're going to head towards the eastern side. We're going to try and scratch around on Drakensberg and Mamba and Batalia and see maybe if we can find the Styx Pride. No sign of them at Treehouse or Twin Dams. It's obviously from Twin Dams, where they were lying last night, has been completely washed away. There's not a single track that we can find in that area, but theoretically maybe they'll go up towards, I'm hoping up towards Torchwood side, maybe Batalia, those areas, and so that's where we're going to head, and hopefully we're going to get some luck with all of that. That's the idea anyway. Snazzy, wondering if the heavy rains create quicksand. Well, yeah, I don't know if we just can have a look at the starling here. So, Snazzy, yes, potentially they could. We haven't had enough rain really for that just yet. I mean, we only had probably about 20 millimeters. Now, 20 millimeters in this system is not that much. When we start having storms of 80, 100, that's when we start to really kind of worry a little bit. And then the roads sometimes can just give way underneath you. You get stuck on if you go into the riverbeds in particular, that's where your quicksand sort of evident. So it's a situation where you got to try and be a little bit careful and watch where you're driving and avoid areas that and not great when it rains. Right, now I'm going to try and cross the Mulawati, hopefully not going to encounter too many gremlins while I do that, and in case I...
We've got a hyena walking in the road right towards us over here. Have a look down there. Now that is unusual, but not uncommon for cool days like today. That's a spotted hyena, one of Africa's super predators. There are two there, yeah, you're right. Now by super predator I mean them and lion, killer whales, great white sharks, polar bears, Nile crocodile. Those are all super predators. Nothing hunts them. And depending on the environment that they're in, they are the most dominant predator. Now you saw that hyena could see us from as quickly as we saw it, and has now moved off into the bushes and will move around us probably and head off towards the den. Now the den is exactly in that direction there, across those trees about 2 miles away, and not uncommon for a hyena to walk massive distances. 30 miles in a night, 40 miles in a night is nothing for a spotted hyena. And you find with the relatively cool temperatures last night and the storm that it probably was quite difficult for the hyena to hunt last night. They couldn't hear, they battle to move around, animals go to ground, they can't see them, and so it's not uncommon to see a hyena walking around at this time of the day and on the way back to the den site. That front hyena looked like she had a bit of a barrel belly, so she did find something to eat last night, which I'm quite happy about, because there's all those, obviously, those very cute little hyena pups around. So I'm going to wait just here and see if those hyena come out onto the open area and we can follow them around a little bit. So we're not going to go anywhere, but while we wait for the hyena to come out, I want to show you why we put the bumps in the road that we do. So the bump in the road is called a mitre drain. Its function is to slow water down so that the water doesn't transport the road away. And as you can see, coming from right up at the top there, the water ran down the left side of the road, and as it came down the slope, it started to pick up speed. Then it hit the mitre drain here, and it changed direction, which slowed it down, changed direction, and went into this area here, which is the mitre drain extends into the bush. In this particular case, the mitre drain filled up. You can see how much sand has been transported off of the road. The mitre drain then filled up, and it ran over the hump. And as it started to get down, to increase speed again down the slope, it picked up speed. And as it picked up speed, it could pick up bigger particles of soil and carry them away. And this erosion that we're seeing over here is as a result of that increased speed of the water, and what we try and avoid with the bumps on the road. Interesting. So this will give you an idea. If we didn't do the bumps on the road with the mitre drains, this is what it would look like. Oh, the hyena are back in the road again. So let's see what they're going to do. Let's walk into the open a bit here, Xander. So let's just give these hyenas a little bit of space. They're not going to do anything to us, but I do want them to know that we are not trying to hide from them. And if we want to see them quite close on foot, we're going to give them some space. Where we were standing, the bush is fairly hemmed in, and I just want to give these hyenas enough space to feel comfortable to come past us and hopefully give us a bit of a sighting in the open. Now, hyena are not scared of people. Hyena are quite timid. they're definitely not cowards, although I think that it's probably the closest description of a hyena's personality would be cowards, but they definitely are not cowards. In my opinion, the single most dangerous animal, large animal in a camp environment is the spotted hyena. They are absolutely not scared of coming into a camp. They will walk right into a bedroom and bite you full on in the face if they thought that in any way you were asleep or injured. And of course, a snoring human being after a few apple juices. Here comes the hyena now. So I'm not going to, look at that. I'm not going to face this hyena. Let's see what she does. Oh, she's a powerful animal. You know, standing on foot gives you a new appreciation of these guys. Females can top 160 pound or 80 kilograms. She's probably in and around the 50 to 60 kilograms, so 100 pounds. That's a proper sized animal. Just have a look at the muscles that you see there. Now she's about 50 yards away from us now. Obviously fully aware of who we are and what we are. Not a care in the world. And fully capable of taking down both Xander and myself, probably while licking herself clean. Now those round ears swiveling, head swiveling. She's now looking for a partner who's obviously a little bit more shy than what she is. Very brazen hyena. There you got that typical hyena shape, long front legs, sloped, almost deformed or malformed hindquarters. And now? What happened there? How bizarre. She's heard something there. Both of them are standing in the road. They've heard something. Something has caught their attention. Now we're going to create a little bit of space for these guys and see if they come out onto the open area. In the meantime, why don't you go and see what Noel's up to?
Alright, so we have made it over to Chitwa. We're not quite ready for the dam yet. We have to let all the guests at Chitwa Lodge have their morning coffee and tea and maybe a rusk. For those of you that don't know what a rusk is, it's sort of like a South African biscotti. You dunk it in your coffee or tea, you eat it, they're delicious. So we have... it's very cold and we've been searching a little bit. We haven't picked up any tracks. There's been a few impala around, but with the wind everybody's getting a little bit nervous. So what I actually want to do is I want to come down and around to some of the open areas and then go check the airstrip and see if we can find anything prowling about or possibly get some large groups of antelope out in the open there. So that's our plan for now. Just gonna head down this little dip. We stop every now and then and listening, because remember with the rain washing away all of those territorial scents that we talked about, part of that territory marking will be audio. So we have lion, leopard audio possibly. I'm still hopeful for wild dogs. We were talking about it yesterday and probably every single day this week. I'm still hopeful. Sorry, I'm half listening with my left ear. There's some guinea fowl that are going in the background, but it sounds more like good morning guinea fowl calls as opposed to I see a leopard call. But we will monitor it as we go along. Alright. There's some babblers in the background there. So, because of the rain we got, and Tristan told me he thinks it was about 19 mils, so it's a good amount of rain. I wouldn't expect too much walking in the tall grass. I would expect more walking on the road from things like lion and leopard, but that being said, they kind of do as they please. We've got one female impala. I don't know if we'll be able to get her. Sens, just let me know if you think we can get her. And we've been watching her for a few minutes now. She's overly concerned about what's going on. She keeps stopping and listening, stopping and listening. She's not with any other impala. She looks to still be pregnant, so I don't think she's dropped yet. Senzo was watching the belly to see if there was any movement, because we would love to be able to get Impala birth live for you. But I don't know if it's going to happen with her today. I have a feeling with all of the activity, with the rain and everything, that she probably just got displaced from her herd a little bit. That would be my guesstimate of the situation at the moment. But yeah, she's stopping and going and looking around. No calls or anything. Hazmat, you're wondering what animal in the bush has the greatest sense of smell? Great question. I would probably, off the top of my head, I would say elephant. Elephant's sense of smell is very, very, very good. But also, with that in mind, something like a rhino, whose eyesight is horrible, also has an incredibly good sense of smell. They need to be able to use their hearing and their smell because they can't really see much sort of farther away than about 30 meters, and then after that they only see movement at about 100 meters or so. Predators as well will have a good sense of smell, but I'm going to go with elephant as top, and then probably rhino bringing up a very close second. That would be my guess. But if it's windy, it doesn't matter how good your sense of smell is, because it's going to blow it around. The other day, Sense and I were trying to track what we believe was Tingana, and we could smell what smelled like a fresh kill just when they bring the insides out. And because the wind was blowing, where you can't pick up directly where that smell is, it comes and then you think it's there, and then you have to wait, and then the wind will blow it somewhere else. And we looked, Sense, I think we looked for like 45 minutes, and it definitely wasn't right where we were looking. It was probably coming in from just a little bit farther off. So the wind does play up no matter how good your smell is. Lovely fresh hyena tracks. I believe you all got to see a hyena on foot already with Steph this morning, which is fantastic. I'm glad that he was able to head out on his walk. We've got more impala tracks heading down here. Maybe that's where our little ewes' friends went. Ooh, Steph is still following up on his hyena, so let's head to him and see what happens.
We're definitely still following these hyena. The one that was closest to us now has run away, and I think is standing somewhere there. The second one, the darker one that you see down the road there, has been in the same place now for a few minutes, just staring out to the south. And you know, it's always difficult to imagine what these animals' senses are telling them. They're just so much better at hearing than what we are. What I am hearing is that wildebeest that was busy shouting early this morning. And I wonder if that hasn't piqued their interest. As I mentioned, when I first heard that wildebeest this morning, it actually sounded like it had been caught by something. When in actual fact they were just busy chasing one another around. And so there's a very good chance that these hyena did the same thing that I was doing this morning, just listened first to see exactly what was going on. I had the advantage of being able to see the wildebeest in the end, whereas that's not the case for these hyena. And they would rely a lot more on their sense of hearing to find things in this particular area than their sense of sight. Xander says that both have come out. There we go. Both have come out onto the road. And are now walking away. They're just such fantastic animals, you know. Them and honey badgers share the top spot as being my favorite animals to spend time with out here in the bush. And it's mainly because they're always doing something. You know, they've got a very mischievous, I'd like to say cunning, but it's not really cunning in the negative sense. They just got a mischievousness that I find quite appealing, and a curiosity that is scary, but also quite appealing as well. And they are active for far longer in a day than what lion and leopard are active. Well, maybe not leopard, but definitely lion. Or was he just listening? Still listening, Saza. Now, Kirsty says that a few of you are quite amazed that they're not attacking us. And, you know, it is actually quite amazing, considering that they are fully capable of bringing down something the size of a Cape buffalo and regularly hunt their own food, including animals up to the size of kudu, a lot of impala. This time of the year, baby impala, they'll just mow down ranks of them. But it is testimony to the fact that we share a commonality with these animals, and that we are also predators. We bipedal, which makes we're upright and aggressive. We've got a forward-facing posture, which animals find quite intimidating. We are the world's most vicious and violent of all the predators, and have been in competition with these animals for centuries, for a shared resource in protein. And hyena, unlike lion, have adapted to human settlements and human growth by being able to live off of the detritus that we produce. They are much better suited to eating a much wider range of food than what lions are, and so have pretty much weathered the storm around human encroachment into the wild areas. And you find hyena populations stable even outside of game reserves, which is absolutely not the case with lion. Now back to why they don't want to eat us. Hyena will only really take advantage of a prey item when they feel that they've got the overwhelming advantage. So they do eat people, they do bite people. In this area, many hyena many people are killed by hyena every single year. And you've got to be very careful in a camp environment with hyena. There's no falling asleep in the chair next to the fire, or sleeping with your door open because it gets too warm, or sleeping without a night watchman when you're sleeping out in the bush. You run the risk of being eaten by a hyena, in the sense where this hyena feels that he has an opportunity to bite you. The moment one's lying down, looks like this one's going to lie down as well. How awesome is that? Well, that just goes to show how calm these animals are with us. Paula, you want to know if hyena ever come into town? They absolutely do, Paula. There are two different large hyena species in South Africa, the brown hyena and the spotted hyena. The brown hyena is more solitary, and although it does occur here, there are records of it occurring in the Kruger National Park, are outcompeted by spotted hyena inside the game reserves. Outside the game reserves, where spotted hyena numbers are lower, brown hyena thrive, and brown hyena are often associated with humans, and very often will find themselves inside human habitation. They're able to live off of dogs and cats and rubbish and vegetables and a whole bunch of different, whole range of different food sources. Spotted hyena will go into the local villages, and you'll see them around refuse heaps, pit latrines, slaughterhouses. You'll find a lot of hyena activity at night time. So out in the villages, in the more rural areas, spotted hyena are fairly common, whereas into the middle of our cities, with the exception of perhaps Durban or Johannesburg itself, I would say that brown hyenas are common right into the cities of South Africa, and for the rest of Africa as well. Where is that the group of people that have an association? Kirsty just mentioned, in Ethiopia there's a group of people that traditionally have an association with spotted hyena, and you get these hyena callers and these hyena minders basically that feed hyena every single night and afternoon. And just recently they've been showcased on a number of different documentaries and news broadcasts. But if you really want to give yourself a fright at how adaptable hyena are, just go and research for yourselves these hyena people in Ethiopia. and you'll give yourself an absolute fright as to exactly how adaptable these animals are and how fully capable they are of living close and in association with people. Alright, we're going to stick around over here. It's a fantastic sighting with these hyena. In the meantime, why don't you go and have a look at Noelle, who's found herself a tree to show you.
Steph, I have found a tree, but I'm actually looking for the bird that's calling. Can we all hear that? Alright. That is a crested barbet that is calling frantically away, but we cannot see where in this false marula this crested barbet is sitting. Do you have him? Aha! Senzo! Well done. There's our crested barbet. Nattering away. Basically reminding everyone, I'm alive, I made it through the night, and by the way, this is my area. Possibly also saying, hello ladies, but males and females look the same, no sexual dimorphism. So, you never know. Oh, Senzo, your eyes are brilliant. This is the one that I said the other day reminds me of the old rotary dial phone in my Oma's house, my grandmother's house. And a little bit of the sun peeking through, fantastic. Can we hear the woodlands in the background? It is definitely summer. Chitter! I cannot repeat that one. All right, the birds are definitely waking up. Now we also need the mammal species to wake up. Thank you, Crested Barbet. That was lovely. That was a good show. He's a little bit cold. I actually want to see if he'll stay with us just a little bit longer, because I would like to show you something with a cold bird, how they look like. And you can actually see his colors a bit better. Sen's just here at our 3 o'clock next to the starling. He's on top of that branch, just sitting next to the starling there. Oh, perfect. Wonderful. There, now you can see his colors beautifully. But notice how puffed up he is. So when birds are cold, and when, say, impala are cold, they do something called piloerection, where they lift their feathers up and allow the hot air to circulate closer to the body. There's the arrow-marked babblers in the background. I hope you could hear that. And so he is starting to warm up, and he is starting to get being able to move and wanting to go out and forage a little bit. But every now and then the wind picks up and he is cold. Sans, I can see our woodlands in a tree at our 9 o'clock. And I'm thinking we might just be able to get him. So if you go directly on your left hand side, you've got these dead branches, and then just behind you've got that large marula tree, well, large-ish marula tree. It was just on the right hand side there. I'm just going to see if we can possibly get another view. I can still see him. There, he's doing a little bit of a wing display. So since if we go straight in from there, and then up a little bit, and then straight in, and up a bit, and straight in again, and to the right a wee bit. Yeah, he's in that tree, definitely. I just saw him there. And he's moved behind the branches. Oh, sorry guys, we are going to have to wait for another woodlands. He did not want to sit still for us, but definitely displaying, putting his wings out, showing that he's ready for mating, saying, ladies, look at me, and doing all of this, and then turning, and then sitting and calling, and then flapping out and turning, and then sitting and calling. Okay. Thank you, birds. Oh my goodness. Steph has hyena as well as a giant land snail, so let's head back to him and hear what he has to say.
Yeah, we definitely have a giant land snail making a run for it through the middle of this hyena sighting. And James, you wanted a giant land snail. There it is for you, coming straight out of a termite mound and is heading off in search of some vegetation. You can see that this particular snail has been covered by mud here somewhere. This is a bunch of mud that is left over from wherever he was hiding out. Good shot. Now, that is obviously just, they've got simple eyes, not compound eyes, that come out at the end of stalks. They've got 4 of them, and as Xander came into its field of view, it got a little bit shy and poked its head in. But it's amazing, I walked up the same thing and it never saw me. Obviously, Xander's big scary beard. Obviously. Which I must say he has trimmed and he's looking quite neat, spick and span. He shines up quite nicely, our little Xander. Let's see if he comes out. It'll probably take a few minutes to come out again. You can see how big this one is. It's not the biggest that you get. They quite often get much bigger than my fist. And this is a youngster. It'll still do some growing this year and into next. Some nice colours. Been scraped around a bit, so I've spent a little bit of time trying to get out of wherever it spent the winter. There comes the eye, and you'll see the eye will come out on the stalk now. First the small eyes, and now the big eyes. Doom. That's very cool. Another one. Boom. Right, still seeing Xander's beard. Either that or he's got a big hole in his shorts. I just find it absolutely amazing the way that they move around. There's obviously muscular contractions that happen in their foot, and in a way that we can't really see it because it happens underneath here. And then they produce mucus, which they then slide around on. And the mucus lubricates the movement over the soil. They're also hermaphrodites, which means that they are both male and female. Smithy, you'd like to know what the maximum size is of a giant land snail? I'll see if I can find you a shell, Smithy. There's a few shells lying around. These land snails get preyed upon by a variety of different animals, most notably the larvae of the fireflies, or Lampyridae, and you find snail shells lying all over the place because of that. And I would say probably about double, so about this long and about this high would be about the biggest that these shells get. Oops, sorry. I bumped it now. That's going to send it into a state of shock here for the next 10 minutes. That is very cool though. Now, Debbie, you've asked the inevitable question on whether or not giant land snails are edible. I'm just keeping an eye on those hyena just in case they either sneak up on us or run away. Or whether or not these giant land snails are edible, just the same as what we've utilized some other snails for food sources. That's a good question, Debbie. You know, I've never found any literature that says that you can eat these giant land snails. But I've also never found any literature that says that you cannot eat these giant land snails. I would probably give it a try, to be honest with you. They're quite common. I would boil them properly, though. I don't even know how you prepare land snails. I'm assuming that you prepare them the same way as you prepare mussels. Do you know how to do it, Xander?
I don't even like snails.
Xander says he doesn't even like snails. I quite like snails. And I think that they'd be as chewy. I think you'd probably have to cut them up a little bit and cook them like that. I don't know. I think if I were to be hungry enough, I would give cooking a giant land snail a go. I mean, obviously, they're long-lived creatures. And although fairly common in this area, you don't want to go and create some new fad for eating these things unnecessarily. But I don't see why not, to answer your question. I think in a survival situation, I absolutely would eat one of these guys. Definitely deciding that food is more valuable than hiding away at the moment, considering we're not doing anything. This snail's not going to take a short time to run across this road, and so I think we're going to have a look at Tristan's zebra and impala, and we're going to stick around here with these hyena and this lion snail.
We do have zebra and impalas, and it's been a long time since I've seen some zebras on Djuma. We're down all the way in the southeastern corner of Djuma, close to Chitwa, and there's a few little zebras that have probably come from that side. And I'm just spending time on this little open clearing just north of Gari Main, and it's always a beautiful place to see animals. You get a great backdrop either way this side, and the light generally is very nice if the sun is out. Obviously today, no sun, but we do have the backdrop of those big clouds and Drakensberg Mountains. But you can see it's just a small grouping. I think there's only 5 of them in total, which is not a very large group at all, but it seems as though it is one female at least that is pregnant, and hopefully there's going to be a couple young zebras on their way. I think this female right at the back, you can see the size of her stomach in relation to the rest of them. She's absolutely massive. It doesn't look like there's a stallion in this particular grouping. It might be that they've just broken off from another herd, and that's why they're in this direction. There was apparently tracks for a male lion on Chitwa somewhere, and so maybe they've disrupted this herd, and that's why it's kind of come up here, and there's no stallion with them at the moment. Maybe that male lion got that stallion, who knows, I'm not quite sure. But anyway, it's nice to see them again, and nice to see them on Djuma, because like I say, it's been so long since we've actually had them and had sort of regular sightings of them. Hopefully this will be a sign of good things to come as they move into Djuma and towards hopefully quarantine, because it's been a long time since we've seen McCurdy Hurdy. I don't know what's happened to it and where it's gone, or how things have worked. Maybe they've moved off towards Arathusa airstrip or other places where there's been better grazing of opportunities available. Given that quarantine was almost bare at one point, I mean, it's now got a bit of grass over the last sort of 3 weeks to a month, but prior to that it was completely bare and completely devoid of nutrients. Now you can see the nice thing with this is the size difference between these zebras and impalas, so it's always good just to get a reference point. Impalas are a fairly, medium-sized antelope. They're not the smallest antelope that are out there. They're definitely not the biggest. But if you look at them in relation to the zebra, you can see how zebras actually dwarf these impalas, and why they're such a powerful, strong animal and difficult to hunt. So even though we see lots of zebras around, it's very seldom that we actually see a zebra kill and the lions hunting them. They're a clever animal, and again, very powerful animal, so it's not always the easiest one to bring down. In the Mara, the lions there seem to be completely used to it and know how to hunt zebra and have the right techniques, but here our lions battle a little bit more with it. No impala lambs though in the grouping. I've been looking nicely and checking and trying to see if there's any little impala lambs that might be frolicking around. It's this time of the year obviously that lots will be born, and you often get these little nursery groups attached to herds like this, so it would have been nice to have seen some of them as well. So Chitty Chatty Meg, the reason these zebras have this brown tinge like this is because zebras are notorious for rolling in dirt, and so what they do is they'll go and roll around in sand and all kinds of different soils, and what happens then is that they actually take on the coloration of what they've rolled in, and so these guys have probably rolled in a soil that's slightly more clay-like. If you go up Cheetah Cut Line a little bit, which is where we are at the moment, the soil does take on a more reddish coloration. They could have also done it around Chitwa, maybe on the airstrip there, and that would be the reason why they've got that sort of more browny red coloration than just pure white. If they go and lie in very white soils, you'll see the black actually becomes a lot sort of faded, and it almost looks as though they've lost some of their coloration, but it's not the case. It's just the substrate that they rolled around in and kind of tried to look after their coats as much as possible. You can see everybody's quite alert. There's another vehicle that's just passed. All of the zebras and impalas are all looking in this direction. We're very close to it, but kind of nervous. Any sign for him though? We've driven the whole of the boundary just to see, but with the rain it is so difficult to see tracks, so you kind of have to look with a microscope. We've been finding hyena tracks that were after the rain, and it literally is just a little smudge on the ground and a little claw mark in front. So spotting leopard tracks from a vehicle like this while driving is very, very difficult and not easy at all. But we are going to carry on. We're going to try and see if I can find some sort of sign of Tingano somewhere here, and hopefully we will get a bit lucky and something will pop out. And while we do that, let's go back across to Steph and see whether he's decided whether he would eat this land snail or not.
I definitely haven't decided that I'm going to be eating this snail, but the snail's made a slight movement change and has allowed us to give you some idea of its size. Kirsty was asking that something other than my fist to be used as a size comparison, so I'm going to see if I can push. This is a AA battery from our voice packs, and you can see that is now something that you'd have you'd be able to see at home, and that's at full stretch. That's this giant land snail. I'd say he's about half the size of what he could get to. And now at full stretch out. That's fantastic. That is very cool. Noel's got some dung beetles that have decided to come out of a hole.
Well, everybody's been asking, and here they are. The dung beetles! Absolutely fantastic. So, Senzo and I have been sitting here for a while watching these dung beetles. We've seen about 4, and they're not really doing much with the dung. They're sort of picking up whole pieces of impala dung and walking with it. They're not rolling. You can see there. They're being extremely lazy. So normally they would break it down, they would make a nice little ball, they would walk backwards, pushing it the whole time. These guys are like, nope, it's not going to happen. Oh, we are out. We need to eat something. Quick, we better get it all inside. And then these two are sharing the same hole. Look. And they're not going that far in, as Senzo was pointing out earlier. They're just sort of collecting it underneath. Senzo, do you see the one at the back there? Where he's rolling. See that one? So that's impala dung from a constipated impala that's stuck together. And again, he's not rolling a ball. He's just taking it away. It's a little bit bigger than his hole. Oh, I can hear ground hornbills in the background, but I think it's too far. Sorry, this is such an ADD moment. Ooh, toot. Hopefully they come closer. Alright, so you saw there how he broke it up and then pushed it in and got some of the soil out of the way so you could really get it inside. So it's interesting, you get many different species of dung beetle. I don't know exactly how many, but many. But in general, you get 4 behavioral types. So you get telecoprids, who make a dung ball and roll it away from the dung pile. So similar to that one we were just watching now. You get paracoprids, who take the dung under the dung pile, and then you get endocoprids, who take the dung into the dung pile, and then you get kleptocoprids, who fly around looking for the telecoprids to land and have a fight and steal a dung ball. They don't want to build their own, they just want to steal. So right now what you're seeing, you've got the two areas where it's sort of underneath the impala midden, as it were, and the one that's a little bit farther away. The behavior that I was just discussing now is easier to see when you've got a very large dung pile, like say a rhino midden. What I'm getting from these dung beetles at the moment is that because this is their first, from what I can tell, their first venture out for the season, they're literally just trying to get their dung stores. They're not building brood balls at the moment. Brood balls are the larger dung balls that you'll see, and large is relative to the size of the dung beetle, where the female will lay an egg inside of there and then they bury it underground. And then when it hatches, it eats through the dung, and then will come out afterwards. Those are also the really. I've been looking to see if I can find one, because honey badgers will dig them up, because obviously the dung is moist, and then when they bury it underneath, it gets hard. And the honey badgers, as far as I know, can smell that dung ball under there, and they dig it up, and they're actually looking for the larvae inside. So they break open this hard shell and eat the larvae from inside of it, and then leave the husks outside. Extremely busy. Ashlyn, you're wondering what's the difference between dung beetles and carcass beetles. I believe Steph was talking about carcass beetles yesterday when he had that buffalo skull. Now, Steph is much better with insects than I am. His brain capacity on an insect is far wider than mine. I cannot say I've ever seen a carcass beetle, but as far as I know, the little bits that I do know about them is that they deal in the decomposition of a dead animal, as opposed to a dung beetle who's dealing only with the feces of an animal. But if you were watching last night and you have some more information for me on the carcass beetle that Steph gave, I would be interested to know. Joy, you're wondering if the ants would interact with the dung beetles. I've been watching this one that's traveling back and forth to that little burrow. I've been watching the ants moving around there, and I'm sure that they interact in some manner, Joy. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to pick my words, but I've never seen them interact in any other way except for when a dung beetle has died and then the ants start eating him. That's about it. I've never seen them sort of attack a live dung beetle. They sort of work around each other until there's an opportunity for the ants to do something with the carcass of the dung beetle. That's all I've ever seen. Senso's giggling behind me. Kirst is saying this is so great, and I'm agreeing. You know, the action that we see out in the bush doesn't have to be big. It doesn't even have to be as big as the dwarf mongoose and the snake. So people are wondering, why do they take it far away and not just close to the dung pile? It has to do with preference. So I have friends who prefer to live in the city, and they have apartments that are very close to all the amenities that a city would have. And I have friends, or myself for instance, who live very far outside cities and would rather travel farther to get to those amenities. It's basically the same thing. His home is over there. So that's where he's felt safe establishing his home, and he prefers to not deal with having to have his home in the midst of the midden pile. That is the best way I can think of to describe it. It's a behavior. So the whys, we can give little clues as to why his behavior is like that, but I mean ultimately why that particular dung beetle chooses to be farther away, I couldn't really say. It's probably just an individual preference, and then also just his biological insights, just saying that he needs to be farther away from the dung pile. And I would judge him by where he's been and where he's going as a type of telecoprid. Usually the telecoprids go much, much, much farther. I've tracked a dung beetle hundreds of meters down a road, rolling his dung ball dutifully. Something that's very interesting, because we keep getting the cloud cover coming and the sun coming and going. Dung beetles use, when they've got their big dung balls, to find their holes, the telecoprets, when they're going really far away. They use the sun to navigate by. Then, if it's super cloudy, they use the pull from the north-south poles, the magnetic pull, to figure out where they're going. And if it's nighttime, they use the Milky Way to find direction. Absolutely incredible. The Milky Way part was discovered by a South African. He won a Nobel Prize for it, and I cannot think of his name just now. Maybe someone out there can use their researching skills to find out his name. So, as an odd off thought, while I'm watching these dung beetles do what they're doing, I'm listening to David Attenborough's voice in my head. David Attenborough's narrative voice on documentaries has to be the best ever. And I'm trying to picture and listen to what David Attenborough would say about these little dung beetles doing their business. This one he tried to steal a bit of dung from the other one that went down that hole, and then he didn't win, and he's wandering around in circles and then going back in. They're probably having a fight inside of there. While you're asking how big dung beetles can get, I just want to give you a relative size on these dung beetles. Can you guys see my hand? So he's about a little bit bigger than my thumbnail. Okay? Hey, buddy. I've seen dung beetles as big as my hand, the rhino beetles, if that gives you a good comparison. Sorry, we're still watching them. Okay, Steph apparently is still trying to make friends with hyenas. I wonder if it's the hyenas that come and investigate our camp while we're all sleeping. Steph, let's see what you can do. Maybe they stop removing the dustbin.
Definitely are trying to make friends with these hyenas still. They've just moved into this thick bush off the side here. And I'm hoping that they gift us one last glimpse of them before disappearing into the bush. Just here. I can just see through there. You can just see the back of the hyena on the pathway there. Very blurred at the moment. But we're still busy following that spotted hyena. We're now probably about 50 yards away or so. Still very calm with us. And they're still listening south. We're going to have to go around this bush. The reason for that is that Xander's got a backpack on, and we would have crashed through the bush there, and that definitely would have made them a bit more nervous. Following hyena is pretty cool. Sounds like it moved off. It's actually quite difficult following them, to be honest. So, got a big game path here, and I think we'll go and stand on top of that. And just like that, gone. I can hear Franklin calling this side, and you probably find, wow, the Mulwati was flowing last night. Gee whiz, it rained a lot more than we thought it did, eh? So that's a rare sighting. You can see the mud marks from the Mulwati, so it was flowing last night. Not very deep, probably looks like it was sort of mid-shin deep at its deepest, but nevertheless. So now we've got the squirrels busy calling. So those hyena have moved off in here somewhere. We've got some squirrels calling down here. Had a Franklin calling there, so hyenas are moving through there. What we could possibly do is go onto the top of this termite mound here. We might briefly lose signal, but let's see. Maybe not. Come with, let's see. So there's a hyena walked here, we're busy tracking them now. You can see where they walked here. Let's get you some signal. While we try and catch up with these hyena that are walking down the drainage line here, we're going to send you to Tristan, who's just driving about.
We are indeed. We are trying to find ourselves something to look at. It's been a little quiet on this end. Oh, well done, VM. That's not something to look at, it's right there. So it's not a cat or anything like that, but it is still one of my favorite antelopes. So male nyala that is going to disappear behind a thicket. Really, male nyala? Is that where you want to go? Let's just try go forward a bit. Maybe there's one or two more groups together, so we might find another male here somewhere. This male is being a bit of a handful. He's really gone in deep in as possible. No, that's not going to work. Sorry, Goldie. We're not going to get a view of him from there, I don't think. Let's see this side. No. Unfortunately not. So our Nyala's not there at all. It's gone into this deep thicket where all I can see is its tail just hanging down. So we're going to leave that Nyala. We'll try and find another one. This area that we're in is a great place for Nyala. We've got lots of them around the Mulawati system. Now, in terms of the Styx Pride, we're driven all around this area, hoping to get some sort of faint sign of a track somewhere, but there is absolutely nothing that I can find. So I don't know where they went. I don't know if they left the cubs here. I'm really not sure at all. So what I was hoping to do is just go back towards Twin Dams, because when we were at Twin Dams a little bit earlier and drove past there, we had some franklins that kind of
So we're still busy following these hyena, and excuse that abrupt joining us again, but we're still busy battling with these gremlins that have been plaguing us for the last... So Xander just spotted something behind me. Now we are still on the tracks of those hyena. For those of you just joining us, we're following two spotted hyena, through the bush here, and they seem to have given us the slip somewhere along the line, which is not uncommon for hyena to do. My gut feel is telling me that they've crossed into here somewhere. Such a fantastic day. Everything's muted and soft, and although pretty chilly, I mean, I must say both Xander and I are standing here trying to keep ourselves as warm as possible. The bush has got this lovely wet spicy smell to it. It's awesome. I think I'm going to have to go back and resort to some tracking to find these hyena. My intuition as to where they are going is obviously flawed, which is not an uncommon thing for me out here, to be honest. They were looking south though, and that's the only other why I'm saying that they've probably come this way. It's going to take us a bit of time to unravel this trail, and while we do, why don't we go back to those dung beetles that Noel's busy having a look at.
Alright, so this is evidence of dung beetles without actually seeing the dung beetles. I'm just going to walk over and point it out. So this is very fresh wildebeest dung, and then you've got all the soil that's underneath here. These dung beetles are underneath and accessing this dung from underneath the dung. So this would be, in my opinion, an example of paracoprids. Okay. Then we did a little bit of research, so thanks to the guys to help with the research. So the South African who discovered that dung beetles, when they get lost, can navigate by looking at the Milky Way. He was part of a team of 5 people. His name was Marcus Bryne, Byrne, and this was done in 2013. And he is a professor, from what I can tell, at the University of Wits. Wits is in Johannesburg. Hey, Sense. Yeah, in Joburg. All right, so that's pretty amazing stuff. And pretty amazing with the local South African flavor brought in. Alright, so we've had lots of action with our dung beetles. Everything else is super quiet. I got an update from the guys that the Styx Pride is over on Little Gowrie, so we won't be seeing them just yet. We've done a nice little loop around the airstrip and around the open plains near Chitwa. and haven't really picked up much. So we're gonna head back towards the dam as the wind blows. Oh my goodness, it's so cold. Head back towards the dam and see if we can see anything from the dam wall, and then take it from there. Climb back in my car. This is one of those days where all you want to do is get off the vehicle and just start running around, just to warm yourself up a little bit. All right. If I see any more fantastical dung beetle action, don't worry, I will definitely stop again. Never tire of the dung beetles. They're way too much fun. And I'm really hoping that this cloud cover blows away or burns off, but I have a feeling we're in for another very chilly day. Ah, they're everywhere, Senzo. I'm driving down the airstrip, on the side of the airstrip here, and there's just dung beetle activity everywhere. Every little bit of impala dung, every little bit of wildebeest dung. There is an interesting story that I heard many years ago when I first started guiding, that dung beetles were exported to Australia to aid in the cattle dung, what apparently was an issue. There was too much of it. But when they were brought in, they were sprayed down. So dung beetles have mites that help clean their mouth, and they need them to be able to function. So when they get sprayed down, those mites die, and then the dung beetles die. And so these dung beetles didn't thrive there. So when this was finally figured out, then they didn't spray them, and then they brought them in, and it helped take care of the cattle dung. Now, that being said, this story that I heard many years ago, I've never actually read anything more on it, and that would be something interesting, some little bit of homework for myself or anyone that's interested out there, to see how accurate that was and what's happening now, because usually the introduction of invasive species into or introduction of a species that's not endemic to an area doesn't always work out very well. So it'd be something we're gonna have to look more into. Sorry, Kirst, I'm listening. Go ahead. Lena, you're wondering what stops the birds from picking off all the dung beetles that are there. Lena, it's about the same thing as why leopards don't eat all the impalas. They're there and they do get eaten, but everything has to work in balance. So yes, birds can sit there and pick them off, but the dung beetles will also go underground. They've got ways to protect themselves as well. And there's enough of them that, I mean, look, if you got a huge swarm of birds, you might have an issue, but they should be okay. And also, it's very cold right now, so those dung beetles are good. The birds haven't quite found them yet. We've got some bushbuck. Sorry, there we go. There's the male at the back, and there's a little female that's a bit closer. Bushbuck are related to kudu and to eland and to sitatunga, which we don't get here. You'd see that in the delta. They do the track-on-track walking, where they put one foot down and the next foot right in the same spot to minimize the noise that they make. And you usually see bushbucks in very thick, bushy areas, very close to water. And we are close to water because we are right here by Chitwa Dam. And there goes the female. Can we hear the hornbills in the background doing their little display? Shame she's got a little bit of mange on her. Very similar to the Styx Pride that we saw yesterday evening, a little bit of mange. As far as I know, in my experience with the mange, it has a lot to do, it pops up or spreads, however you want to put it, when a species is stressed out. So if there's a lack of resources, or they've got mineral or vitamin deficiencies, it'll pop up a little bit. The male that's behind her doesn't have any mange, it's just her, so it's entirely possible that she just ran into a situation earlier this year when it was very dry, that her preferred food sources were not as available, and the mange popped up. But she's still there. It's okay. She's still alive. I want to see if we can get our hornbills in action. I don't know if we'll be able to. Since you think we'll be able to with the roof. They're here. Huh? We're gonna try. Yeah, alright, we're gonna get up as much as we can. So one hornbill at the top left has a little insect in its mouth, probably trying to feed it to its mate as a little gift. Oh, that one also has an insect. Oh, they're feeding off that tree there. Oh, we dropped it. I actually don't think it's insects now that I'm looking at what they're doing. I wonder if there's a seed store inside that that hollowed out tree. The background is very blown out, so it's a little bit harder to see. I don't know if you all can see a bit better than I can. So this is the southern yellow-billed hornbill, and in the mornings like this, as they're waking up, they do the calls that you can hear in the background, and then they start doing this beautiful wing display. So I just want to sit here for a little bit and see if we can get them to do the wing display. Shame that one really wants to feed the other one. They mate for life. Here we go. Robin, you're asking if we have the African silvery-cheeked hornbills in Djuma. No, Robin, unfortunately we don't. We have the southern yellow-billed hornbill that you see here, red-billed hornbill, gray hornbill. Ooh, gorgeous. The southern ground hornbill that we could hear, well, I could hear, but it was too far off for our mics, the hoo-too-too-too. And then every now and then we will have a trumpeter that will pop up in this area. As far as I know, that's it. No silvery-cheeked. I've actually never seen a silvery-cheeked, and I'm wondering if possibly that is up in East Africa. Robin, I'm not sure if maybe you have your bird book in front of you. You could give me a distribution or an idea of where that one might be found. My bird book of African birds is at home, so if you don't have it in front of you, I can triple check when I get home with my big book. Joy, interesting question. You're asking if the males with the hornbills are a little bit larger. Since you think we're still able to get up there, we're going to try and get you another view. Joy, from what I've seen with the yellow-billed hornbill, there we go. You can see the colors much better there. The male tends to have more of red underneath its beak there, a little bit larger patch, and I guess slightly bigger in body size, but in general, to me, they look the same. We can triple check and see what the sassel says. Oh, and I found the silvery-cheeked occurs in northern Mozambique, so no, we don't get it here. Oh, fantastic. No difference with the male and the female in size that I can tell from here, but I can investigate a little bit more if you need me to. So northern Mozambique, so if you went to Gorongosa, you would be able to see silvery cheeked as far as I can see on the distribution. So we've got the two that we're looking at, and that's a really beautiful shot. We've got the two that we're looking at here, and then there's another two in a tree in front of us, and they're busy talking to each other. Yeah, it's they're picking seeds out of there. Did you see that one just spit that seed out? It wasn't insects before, it's definitely seeds. That poor little squirrel's stash, they're raiding it. And then off they go. I was just laughing to myself in my head. I don't think I've looked up a hornbill in my bird book. At least not the page with the southern yellow-billed hornbill, probably ever. It's such a common bird, so I'm giggling to myself with the question about the silver-cheeked, and I'm going, oh, I have to check my Africa bird book. But its distribution being in northern Mozambique, it is in my book, and I'm just laughing that I haven't looked at that page ever. So you guys, again, thank you so much. Learning something new every day because of your wonderful questions. The wind has died down a little bit, thank goodness. It was very blustery before. And more than a little cold. So I hope Steph is a bit warmer as he's wandering around on foot and managing to get his blood flow going. So let's head over to him and see what he has to show us.
We definitely are a little bit warmer now that we're tracking those hyena, I must be honest with you. But we stopped to admire a num-num. Now a little bit earlier we were talking about some edible fruit around, and this is one of the trees that produces an edible fruit relatively early on in the season. But as you can see, this one is still flowering. Now there's one or two fruits, there's one there. And they'll get about 3 times the size and blood red when they are ripe to eat. But I see that the tree is just covered in flowers. Now, num-nums are one of the plants that have been cultivated commercially for gardens, for ornamental purposes. They provide a barrier, a very effective thorny barrier. They also, you can hack at them, and they just tend to thrive under being hacked. And so they hedge quite nicely. And they've got the most beautiful jasmine-y scented flower. So all these flowers that you're busy having a look at now have got the strong jasmine, I was going to say flavor, but and definitely have a most beautiful perfume. You can smell them from couple of 100 yards away, and it is how I was drawn to this one, is that wafting down this drainage line, bisecting the trail of these two hyena, I smelt this. I thought we'd come and share it with you. Oh yeah. Obtuse, I'm going to say Wally is what I heard over there, but please excuse me if I get that wrong. Oh, obtuse Willie. Right. You said everything seems to have thorns out here, and I must agree with you that for the most part, everything that you see around us does definitely have thorns. This num-num has thorns. If we walk over here to this particular plant, this has thorns. This is a fallen down black monkey orange, and you can see that this has wickedly curved thorns on it, and you can see quite capable of snagging you and holding on to you. These things are a nightmare to try and get out of if you do walk into it. And then we've got buffalo thorns which have thorns, and we've got knob thorns which have thorns, and we've got acacias or vachillias which have thorns. so there's a lot of things that do have thorns over here, and it's because this place is basically the savanna biome is on the edge of the semi-desert biome. And water and the use of water is important out here. And so plants that invest a lot of energy into growing deep roots and tapping into water and making lovely leaves, if they can't grow tall, they have to get thorny. Otherwise they're going to be eaten, or the leaves will be eaten by any number of animals out here. And so leaves are a precious resource because they make the plant food. Water is a precious resource because they obviously need the water to grow and to feed the plant cells, but they can't lose it, and so they put in these defense mechanisms, and everything from here's a buffalo thorn, incidentally, and everything from chemical defense through to mechanical defense, which you're seeing over here, which is the thorns of this particular tree, are employed to protect their leaves. Now this particular buffalo thorn is a bit scrubby because it's been smashed down by an elephant, but it does allow us to pluck some of the tender young shoots. And although these thorns I've got to be quite careful of, to be honest with you, I at the same time can pluck off some tender shoots of this buffalo thorn, which make for a delightful snack out here. Although the num-nums are not ripe just yet, these buffalo thorns are lovely. They've got a peppery lettuce, spinachy type of taste. As they get a little bit older, they get a bit more bitter, and you've got to boil the bitter out of them, so you've got to cook them a little bit. Otherwise they tend up being a little bit but young like this, they've got a very sweet aftertaste and a lettucey, spinachy taste in the morning. Wow, that's lovely. I want to share this tree with you. This is probably one of the oldest trees at Djuma, if not the oldest tree at Djuma. This is a giant leadwood tree, and generally speaking leadwood trees are about half the size here. This tree must have been an absolutely magnificent tree when it was alive. I've heard a variety of different reports. I mean, I obviously don't know the exact answer, and so I'm using this just hearsay, but it was from one of the scientists in the Kruger National Park that I had on my vehicle as a guest a few years ago. He said that the reason why there's a lot of dead leadwoods lying or present in the bush is two reasons. One is they're very resistant to fungus and termites even when dead. Two is the variable ages. Now I'm going to show you, if we just turn around, Xander, if I could do a quick, all the dead trees that you're seeing right now are all dead leadwoods, all the dead ones that you're seeing. And you can see from small to massive behind us, they all look like something happened, that they died in a particular way. And when I asked the scientist what is the reason for it, he said that 600 years ago, a massive drought in this area killed off all the trees, including the leadwoods. And the reason why we only see leadwoods standing at the moment is because the leadwoods are the ones that have been resistant to being eroded over time. And so he said to me that the trees were all killed at the same time, which is why we are seeing many variable ages. And they were killed by a drought, and they were killed 600 years ago. And that these trees have been standing for 600 years. Now, I don't know, you know, my common sense tells me that 100 years for a leadwood is feasible, but 600 years, I mean, that's a long time. But you know, wow, a real fantastic old man. Nevertheless, they've been here for a long time and can grow upwards of 1,000 years old. So this tree is probably around about that amount of age when it died. All right. On that note, we're going to be sending over to Noel, who's sitting at the dam.
I am at the dam. I'm still on the northern side of the dam. We've just spotted a starling who's busy digging up some bits of soil and some dung and picking the insects out. I'm going to assume it's probably something like termites from the way that it was digging about, maybe some ants. It's interesting how far they can see the movement of the insects that they're going for, and they're quite quick on the ground. Burchell's starlings. And then very adept at getting to them if they try to get under the soil. Notice how the coloration on this starling is very blue and black. There's not a lot of sun, this cloud cover, so the light waves are hitting those iridescent parts of the feather at a different level, and so we're getting a much darker sheen as opposed to sort of that bright sunlight when it hits and you get those vibrant purples and greens. So when it's cooler like this, something like this starling can hunt for longer and more often because it doesn't need to expel as much energy because of how cool it is. So that's one of the reasons why we're getting such great bird activity this morning. And then the warmer it gets, the less active. So sort of the heat of the day, when it's very, very hot like it was yesterday, the heat of the day, the birds will be a lot less active and resting and conserving their energy, very similar to what we would do or even what a lion would do. When as I say that, the sun's peeking through just a little bit. Okay, let's drive around a bit more and get back towards the dam itself and see what our cheeky little hippos are up to. I've been looking to see if I can find some active termites for you. Because it's nice and cool and because it rained last night, they're going to be taking the soil out from the parts that got flooded inside of their mounds and rebuilding the mound, and that's how the mound gets bigger.